Right.
Well, I think it's just about 6 o'clock. We'll let the last few people find their seats. I see some of you are getting quiet and making eye contact, so I feel like it's probably time. So good evening. This is also my time to tell you to please silence your cell phones. Oh, do as I say and also as I do.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So this is wonderful. Welcome to the Fall 2022 Tuesday evening lecture series. I am very excited for tonight, as I know y'all are, just by how many people I see in seats in this auditorium. We are so excited to have you here. And our virtual audience, we can't see you, but we know you're here. We're glad you're here as well. My name is Tiffany Wolf-Smith. I'm Assistant Curator of Education here at the Modern Art Museum of Fort Worth. Before I introduce our guest this evening, I also want to do a quick shameless plug for next week. You all be back, same time, same place, same seats if you want, to see and hear Justin Adian. I've been practicing his name, Justin Adian. He is a Fort Worth-born artist, now living and working in Brooklyn. He'll be here to share ideas and works from his career. Also, please take the opportunity. His work that is in the Moderns collection is currently on view on the ground floor, so be sure to check it out before his lecture. So now on to this evening. I'm going to keep this introduction short and sweet because I know we all want to get to the good stuff. Tonight, the Modern's Chief Curator, Andrea Karnes, is going to offer a final send-off for this summer's incredibly popular, thoughtful, and expansive exhibition, Women Painting Women. Also, if you have not seen the exhibition, you have no excuse. You should have seen it by now. But don't waste any more time. It's up through the end of this week. Make sure you get in there. If you have seen it, go see it again. Just get back in those galleries. This exhibition has made a valuable contribution to the discourse of painting, and Andrea's special consideration of the work of 46 women artists painting female and femme subjects offers a new lens through which to view the field of painting. Art history and its penchant to omit women artists throughout its trajectory is a MacGuffin that leads to further tendrils of investigation into nature, the body, portraiture, and selfhood. And Andrea says, and I quote, "The multi-generational nature of this exhibition and its time space from the 1960s to now helps illustrate key conversations that are still alive and making their way into imagery. The artists in Women Painting Women engage in analyzing gender, sexuality, identity, censorship, exile, community and headspace, and sites that are public versus those that are private." That's a lot of stuff in one exhibition, and she did it. So to broaden this evening's take on Women Painting Women, Karnes is joined by exhibiting artists Celeste Dupuis-Spencer and Christiane Lyon. Celeste Dupuis-Spencer was born in New York City and grew up in the Hudson Valley, earning a BA from Bard College, where she studied with Nicole Eisman, also an exhibiting artist in Women Painting Women. She has since relocated to live and work in Los Angeles, where she had her first solo exhibition at Artist Curated Projects in 2015. She has since been included in the Whitney Biennial in 2017 and the Hammer Museum's exhibition Made in LA in 2018. Her work embraces the tension and ambiguity of liminal spaces, such as those between the personal and the archetypal, the intimate and the political, resentment and dignity and repression and love. A great contribution to this conversation. Christiane Lyon is a California-born and rooted artist, currently living and working in Los Angeles and San Francisco. Lyon has a BA in art practice from UC Berkeley and an MFA in painting and drawing from the University of California. Lyon lays claim to various influences, including art historian T.J. Clark, and worked for artist John Baldessari in her studio postgraduate. Also, the artists Elizabeth Peyton and Marlene Dumas, also on view in Women Painting Women. So many connections. And I'm losing my place. In her ongoing series titled Some Women, Leon often appropriates images from various sources, including social media and fashion photos, and painterly collages them into new compositions, manipulating and combining female bodies, clothing, and backgrounds into paintings that are dense with visual information that explore female individuality and objectification with merging aspects of art history and pop culture. So welcome these lovely artists and Andrea Karnes, and we look forward to this being the shoot-off for our new series of fall 2022.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for being here tonight. It's good to see all these familiar faces again in the museum. What I thought I would do, and I haven't even talked to these guys about it because we've hardly had time. Celeste's plane basically just landed. But I'd like to spend like just a few minutes setting up the exhibition for those of you who haven't seen it or saw it but maybe didn't read anything about it or know kind of what the spark for it was. And then we'll have a conversation between the three of us, and then like the last few minutes for questions from the audience. So I again, didn't discuss this with them, but I'm doing this a little bit differently. There aren't any images up.
I think there's a pause when he's switching out.
Okay, images are coming. But they're just gonna scroll. They're just gonna scroll. We're not really talking about specific images. It's just all the works in the show, except when we get to Christian and Celeste's images, we'll stop it so they can talk about their own work. So otherwise, you're just looking at what's in the exhibition, and you're not seeing it in conversation with each other like you will in the gallery, so please go to the galleries if you haven't yet. But this exhibition really starts with me reading in 2019 that Linda Nochlund's seminal essay, Why Have There Been No Great Women Artists, was turning 50 in 2021. So in that essay, Nochlund argues that genius is a construct and it's based on accessibility, and it's systemic, like who can get into academies, who can paint from live nude models. The answer was white men, mostly in all cases. So she's saying that genius for women is like a different thing because they had to work, there were all these workarounds, and even workarounds trying to be seen in the institution. It's really just looking at what happens to the female convention when it's put in the hands of women as makers. So in other words, women as makers, women as subjects. I certainly am not trying to answer any questions about the female gaze or female desire or is there a feminine aesthetic. I'm not even trying to have this be a feminist exhibition. I really just wanted to take the temperature since that essay, which has been so important to scholarship ever since it was written, I just wanted to take the temperature on the last 50 years to see how things have changed. And I do think there's like a very implicit whiteness to the reader of Linda Nochlund's Why Have There Been No Great Women Artists and to the artist she's talking about. So that's one way things have changed. I think now there's just like a richness of difference of all kinds that wasn't part of the art scene in 1971. So it seemed to me like it was going to be this really good time to see how we've progressed. We've also rolled back in some ways, which is another reason why it's really timely to look at women's bodies and think about women's rights right now. The exhibition has this historic, bent throughout, but it's not hung chronologically, and it's not a completely historic exhibition because painting was a privileged medium for white men for so long. There are gaps in decades when women weren't really painting that much. So, they were picking up photography and performance art and doing other things instead. So I wanted to include trailblazers in this exhibition, but I wanted them to be alongside young artists or young in career. I'm not talking about age here, but just young in career and middle career, like all in conversation together. So instead of a chronological hang or a historical hang, the exhibition is installed according to 4 chapters. And the chapters are really fluid. Any of these artists could be argued into any of the chapters. But the chapters are Color as Portrait, which talks about artists who use color to create a psychological mood or to talk about identity, including race or gender or sexuality. And then Selfhood, which is artists who, it's really 2 things in Selfhood. It's artists who create very personal interior moments, which Celeste's work I debated about this for a long time, should have definitely been in that category. But it's about, and Chris Jones it's about personal moments or women who smash archetypes or work with archetypes. So it's like either composite women or very personal interior moments. And then the third theme is called Nature Personified, and it's about artists who relate the female body to the landscape or make work that is about like the sort of mystic woman, the goddess, the priestess, the idea of relating a female body to the earth as a metaphor, Mother Earth, you know. And then the last theme is the body, and that's where Celeste's work is right now. So the body really encompasses, you know, collapses centuries of female nudes, and really represents some artists like Jenny Saville who create really a portrait of flesh. You know, it's an excuse to paint skin. And others who really stylize or simplify what's going on. So there's like the range of completely unidealized to completely fantasized and everything in between. So that's kind of the gross summation of the exhibition. And we can talk more about it as we go, but what I'd like to do is ask both of you just to briefly talk about each of your works, but also just to start with like how you were introduced to art and why you decided to become a painter, and then just like what your work is in the show and kind of how it fits into what you do. So you want to start, Celeste?
Sure.
Okay, so we'll put up your work.
Cool. That was a prompt.
We could flip a coin.
Yeah, no, I can do it.
Sorry.
Oh, they do? So I
If
could,
you want
like,
to.
prance around.
Yeah, if you wanted to look up or,
There we go.
So should I wait for it?
yeah, maybe. Or you can talk about like what your introduction to art was. Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
I actually didn't, art was always something that was sort of baked right into the batter. So it was always this thing that was happening while I was trying to sort of like get my life together, you know, try to like grow up or, you know, so I actually spent, before I went to Bard, I was a landscaper in upstate New York. So I would always sort of draw and paint, but I was a landscaper, and I like drove like the pickup truck for the company. And I was not in school, and then Bard had this this program where they, for local adults in the Hudson Valley, local adults to go to attend all the classes. Like the college is completely open, and it's for like basically no money if you're a local adult. And I went, and I happened to be there at a time when Nicole Eisenman was teaching, and Amy Silman and Judy Pfaff and these like women, you know, like hardcore. And I still didn't get it. Like I still was like making, and they actually grabbed me and pulled me aside, and at a certain point, and they yelled at me. They were like, you are a woman, you're a good painter, like gay, you're like all these things, like you have no right to be a stupid artist. Like you have to take this seriously, you know? Like I was like being yelled at, but nobody had ever spoken to me. It's still,
Yeah.
it wasn't really it wasn't part of the thing.
Yeah.
Like I just got to go to school for free, so I could do whatever I wanted, obviously painting, and then I'm gonna be a landscaper. And then it sort of happened again when I got into the Whitney. I again was like, you know, the career hadn't really been happening, and I was in my sort of like mid-30s, and I was trying to get myself pulled together. I just came to LA, and then the Whitney came, and I was shocked by like the next few years. Like it was shocking. I had no idea. So that's how.
You had to, what do you mean by shocked?
I just sort of had gotten to this place with painting where it's like really important to me, but I just understood that I didn't, not only did I not think it was going to be my career, I also didn't really want it to be. I was coming out of this place, I had moved to New York and was around all these amazing artists, but it was also at a time when art felt really restrictive. And it was almost 100% my approach. These are some of the greatest art, you know. But to me, I was so filled with anxiety, and I had such a sort of a clash of approach. Like I felt like there was like I felt like I was really only it was only okay to be a painter if I was going to be doing like really overt gay paintings about like my identity. It was in the early 2000s where it was really identity centric in this very specific way. And then I was like, I can't do that.
No.
I don't think I want a career. I actually don't want, like, I want to do something completely different.
And I know
And
you
that's
took a
when it
break,
took off.
right? You took a
Yeah.
break for a couple of years.
Yeah.
So how did you find your way back into
Well,
painting?
that was the thing. The break was really sort of like trying to figure out who I was if this wasn't the thing, you
Yeah.
know. It turned out to be so essential. And I was thinking, I was getting ready to apply to like Antioch to like maybe be a counselor or something, you know. And then my friend Eve Fowler offered me that solo. But it was at her, you know, her studio, I mean, her gallery is wonderful. It's like the people that she shows are amazing, but it's in her house. Like I could do that and not feel like I was making this, you know, she's a friend and it was in her house.
Yeah. So
Yeah, and it was
Comfortable.
watercolors.
yeah.
And then all of a sudden a gallery asked to show, and then the Whitney, and then I just sort of got ripped out of all my new plans and thrown into this, like,
That's probably a good
which
thing.
was amazing because
Yeah.
I really did purge my approach that wasn't working, this really rigid approach,
Yes.
and I needed a good long purge.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about your work, but we're having trouble getting, it won't pause. I don't know. So let's, Christian, do you want to talk about how you, and we'll go back to Celeste, I don't know. Do you want to talk about how you were introduced to art first? And we'll talk about your work when we can see it. Both of you.
I guess it's sort of similar with you. Like, it's something.
There's your work.
Oh, cool.
Okay, so
Okay, should I?
you go and then we'll go back to
She was
Celeste.
just okay.
Well-
Well, okay. I'll keep going.
Well, it just moved again.
Okay.
Oh,
We'll switch on back.
Sorry,
Never mind. Okay.
we have a problem.
Anyway, something always happens, and that's natural. So we'll just go with it. So yeah, it was. I was always like drawing around the house, and I would together somehow, and I didn't know about appropriation art. And oh, is that the feedback?
I don't know.
So, and thank you. And so then I knew at that point I wanted to major in art when I went to college. And I happened to meet Catherine Sherwood, who at the time was a professor at UC Berkeley, She really impressed me with the program there, and I really liked her. I liked the campus. I felt comfortable there. It was a great school. And it was a small art department, so it was really easy to be able to talk to people, like to get individual attention from the teachers there. And it ended up being the teachers that I was closest to were 3 women, sort of, and that not as big names, but Catherine Sherwood.
John, we're having some feedback. I don't
Should I
know.
bring it forward more? Or?
You might have to turn her down a little
What
bit.
if I?
Pull that mic a little closer to you, and I'll turn it down.
Oh, closer. Okay.
Okay. Is that better? Yeah. Okay.
Feels like it right now.
But wonderful painters and wonderful teachers, and Catherine Sherwood, Wendy Sussman, and Squeak Carnwath. And they encouraged me to apply to graduate school. I applied to a few. I got into UCLA. It was so hard to get into at the time I applied, and I think it still is, that I was like, well, I guess I should go. So I went. And then after UCLA, through UCLA, I really connected with John Balzari when I was working there. I started working for him as an archivist afterwards. He became, that's basically how it's not
How you
that,
started.
Yeah.
For either of you, do you feel like I'm waiting for Celeste? I'm like preoccupied with waiting
No,
for
it's okay.
Celeste's work to come up there.
I'm gonna stop looking. I know what it looks like at least.
For either of you, do you feel like you had stumbling blocks? Well, you kind of spoke to this a little bit already, Celeste, but in school, that had anything to do with being a woman, or with your sexuality, or with your gender, or like you're saying you felt like you had to make work about like
Yeah.
in the queerness category. Was that?
But also, I mean, everything that what is life other than a stumbling block based on like things like having to work like 8 times as hard as you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I actually think that for me, in the end, those stumbling blocks were like me flexing my chops, you know? They ended up, but like in terms of like direct, you know, I don't think, I don't think so, but I think it's just so in the air that we breathe.
Yes.
And it's so in art history. I mean, I look at like the art historical paintings that I'm most in love with. And these are paintings and painters who I truly adore. And there's, up until like 19 teens, there's not a single person that's not male and European,
Definitely, and I that was actually a question here. It's just like you guys both in so many ways are in conversations with dead white men, and some living probably,
and
but
loving conversations too.
yeah,
Like,
loving
it's like
conversations.
they're mentor people, yeah. And
No, it's not like I'm trying to like redo something.
Yeah.
It's
Okay, there's
like,
Celeste work. I just want to
Okay.
take a mental picture.
super personal, you guys, super personal.
Because I do want you guys to talk about your works, and I'm sorry that somehow we just went back to it.
Oh, do you just have to like snap back?
You are. Oh, okay.
Oh, cool.
Okay, good. Okay,
It's you doing it, okay.
Oh.
That's so crazy.
Okay, but she can still go back.
Yeah.
So do you want to talk about this? And
Yeah, okay, so like I was talking earlier with you when we were walking around that one of the things that I'm typically more than reluctant, like sort of like flat refuse to be in group shows that are centered on like the female gaze up until like reading this proposal and being like, give this one, yeah, you know.
Thanks.
And like, yeah. And then also like queer shows, you know, because I feel like, because, so this is about this painting. Like, I feel like it's so, if people think that, first of all, if they think I'm making like gay pictures, and it's a bunch of knights that are marching off of a cliff. You know, it just means that they're getting the identity mixed with they're stopping the experience. They're not looking. You know, so I spend a lot of time. Is it a lot of time? I don't really know how to say it. I want to make it like very, very clear that I'm a painter. I don't even, you know, I'm like my identity is something that is definitely not in the studio with me when I work. I mean, it's in my you know, I am when I am, it's in my relationships, but these are things that I don't think about, and I don't think about when I'm making my paintings are not an engagement with these conversations, and that's my answer to those conversations in a way that like there's like I don't think there's something incredibly dangerous about becoming a performative around these topics, and one of the main reasons is that it's always it always means that I've invited the male gaze into my studio to be chastised by me or negated by me, or like it's always still centering around this this thing. And I think because of who I am and the fact that there are, you know, when I paint my lover's a woman, and when I paint my body, it's my, you know, if I can have these, if I can even make gay pictures without it being a painting about identity, you know? So to even brush up against these things. And so with that painting, I really wanted to know if it's possible to make a painting of like the kind of love that I have, you know? Because when I was painting it, I was just thinking about how much I loved my then girlfriend. I wasn't thinking, you know? And would it be possible for people to not get hung up on that? And to be able to actually go, like, to be able to look at this painting and get a sense of really what I was, like, it's a love letter, and that's sort of a song that's happening in the paint, you know, and if people are hung up on what the picture, or the identity, they miss it, you know?
But, you know, even, I mean, just,
Is that so rambly?
No,
Sorry
it
if
was-
is. It's like.
no, I think it was beautifully said.
Cool.
And I think, like, what you're saying is, you know, makes perfect sense. You don't want it to be about that you're gay. You're not thinking that when you're making the painting. But just the level of intimacy in the image and how personal it is like, that's the brave part. It's not that you're two women or
Yeah.
whatever. It's that you're letting us see into your life.
Totally. And that was the
As subject
that was
matter.
that was sort of my that was a decision, like that was a decision as a way to there's sort of two choices, right? Like one of them is to be like I am what I am, and this is who I, you know, and this is like, take it as you want. Like it like sort of have these sort of like walls up about it, and like have it be really aggressive, you know, and then it's like, and then it ends up being about all the things that I was trying to make it not about.
Yeah.
Right? Like or I could actually make it like really painfully vulnerable and intimate, you know, and
You're making it a painting about two people.
Yeah,
You're
and
two
about
human beings.
a feeling that is, that's like a song, you
Yeah.
know? It's this like,
Doesn't matter.
and I
what-
feel like so often that's missing in a world where women and queer people have to sort of fight so hard to like have their intimacy sort of taken seriously and have their like love taken, you know, especially in the world of image, like if it's gay, it can become kitsch like this,
Yeah.
you know?
being
It's-
seen as equal.
Mm-hmm.
And
And I really, yeah, it was really important to me that like, that it was like an investigation into a feeling that brought me into places that were hard to go to. You know, because I felt like in order for it to not fall into those, which isn't the fault of the paintings, it's the fault, you know, like I would have to work 8 times as hard, just like everything else.
But like the idea that it's a love letter is pretty beautifully said.
Yeah.
No, I
And
really
that-
like that idea.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
even a love letter in it, actually.
Is that what's up at the top?
Yeah.
On the little images.
Well, okay, we're not on any of your works right now, but
It's okay.
when we get back to yours, you can talk about that. But I want to also say that, like, I recognize as the organizer of the exhibition that the idea that it's women painting women, the whole title and the premise can be problematized. And, you know, I was going to ask you guys about that.
Well, one of the things that I really appreciated about it was that often when it's women painting women, it's like basically just means like women painting women that they find like sexy and hot.
Yeah.
In like poses that are unhuman or like, you know, but
Yeah.
also you look at them and you go like, this is actually just sort of like an anti version of like a male fantasy. It's
Yeah.
like still it feels so like it's sort of centered around this imposition of sexuality, you know. When I read what you were doing, the idea that like it's also like women sitting at tables and like actually an interior world is what you were investigating, and I had the sense that even while there are like performative pieces, there's aspects of women that is perform, you know, and so in this grouping there was something that was so I was going to say respectful, but sort of reverent about the women's life and like what women see when they see other women.
I think
Yeah.
that's really, that's what I was trying to do, and thank you for saying that. But I also think, like, just in full disclosure, I've had the opposite criticism, which is like, these paintings are weird, you know, like, or, you know, like that
What do
kind
you
of like,
mean?
just like, not, there is
So the whole
that.
premise of the show, not that it,
All of
they
it.
didn't get it.
Yeah.
Basically.
Or they just didn't like it. Maybe they got it, but I don't know. But, but people tell you what they think, which I'm open to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
you're very-
A Texan. But, but yeah, I mean, well, let's ask the same question to you.
Well, because I was just thinking about this today, and when I rewalked through the show, and because I think there's always been an idea about, I don't know what the right word for it is, but how there's a certain way women paint. And I once had a collector actually tell me that she collected mainly, well, she had a lot of, she lives in, well, I should never know. She collects
Maple Drive.
male artists, or she likes, like, she had didn't think that male artists could, not male artists, female artists could do big, powerful brush strokes.
Yeah.
You know, and I just kind of was like, and so that women painting, like, and then there's always the thing that I hear people say, oh, I would never guess that a woman painted that. Or, oh yeah, I can see that a woman painted that, you know, and every piece in that show is unique. And everyone has their own way of painting in it, their own style, their own touch of their hand. And it doesn't just say, yes, they're women, but it's not like, oh, I don't know, does that make sense? It's not, there isn't a stereotypical way that women paint, and I think this show is a very good illustration of that.
Yeah, but I also think that there is I mean, for people that have had to find, for 10,000 years, find ways through and under, like you're right, there isn't a stereotypical way, but there is also this way of perceiving, this way of thinking that is, you know, that I don't even know is perceivable for people that haven't had to sort of like find their way through, you know.
You mean it's
so there's like
it's systemic.
the interior, yeah, but so like the interior of a person who isn't male, and now I'm using these words, but also I know they're all incredibly complicated words, you know.
Well, this is,
I experience
it's
them as
all
complicated
incredibly
words.
complex, period.
Totally. But that's the thing. I feel like there's this way that painting in the world really mimics this sort of overt way of thinking and processing information that is this cultural, this, you know, it's like, you know, in America it's very American. It's this like, and so there's this expectation that like a woman painter is gonna just like jump on to the, like they're just gonna like that, this is the way that people think, and if she's gonna be a painter, she's gonna jump on that. But it's not, like if women have been sort of blocked from being part of that for so long, there's another way of perception. There's access to that, you know, but there's also access to something else that that when if you had just focused in on like style or like women painting like women nude, you know, then it would be sort of forcing this thing that's incredibly complex, incredibly nuanced and personal to each person. And you would have been like, well, all of that stuff is like fine, I don't get it, you know, but when you do this, that's what we're gonna show, the nude or like whatever. And you didn't do that. You allowed there to be like an exploration of this quiet, secret, interior world that's happening alongside of like wielding brushes and like.
I think that the show also says something just about painting in general.
Yeah.
For painters or not for painters, you learn about painting. I also think that we all like to see our own likenesses. Like there's access just because it's figures for some viewers. So those are like, aside from the topic of women painting women, all those things come together and I feel like teach a lot just in general about painting as a
I
medium.
guess that's what I was trying to say, was that it could just be a show about people painting.
Yeah.
Because I mean, there's such, it's people paint, it's painters. It's in and of itself, all of those paintings in that show are just gorgeous and wonderful to look at.
But it also came at this very timely moment by accident, where women's rights and women's bodies are at the fore of all of our minds. So there is that too.
Totally.
And you know, it's
I think that's prompting my sort of take on it right now.
Yeah.
It's
yeah,
just like-
probably
like this-
for most people who see it, no matter what your view is.
But like, I don't necessarily think when I look at some of those paintings, like Sylvia Slay, like, oh,
Yeah.
that's a woman's that's a woman, she's that, you know, or even Jenny Saville, like, it's not, who else? Jordan Castile, it's not like, it doesn't immediately say, oh, I would guess that that's a woman that thinks that.
Totally.
Well, Emma Amos's son was here the other day, and that's her painting, and she's no longer with us, but her son was here, and he said, and Emma Amos was a black artist, and he said, my mom really wasn't thinking about race or like being a woman. She was just painting because she had to paint. And I think that's how most painters are, you know?
That's what it is.
Yeah. And so it's like the same thing you said, you know, it's, whatever you're painting is just, it's a way in, right? It's to doing something that you,
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
so you can be a maker. Or,
Yeah, I mean, I don't think of myself as a woman first. I think of more of myself as an artist first, particularly, you know.
I really wish we could see your painting so you could
Yeah.
talk.
I know.
Okay, it's coming clear.
That's the thing about this conversation. I love thinking about it, you know, and I love talking about it. But really, I'm only ever gay or a woman, like when I'm engaging about this stuff with other people. Like I never, like when I'm making coffee, like not at all.
Yeah.
When I'm painting, like not at all. Like I'm just sort of, I'm basically just like an arm and a head anyway.
Yeah. Well, and I think it should be said that even though your painting in this exhibition is you and your ex-lover, that's not all that you paint about by any means.
Very rarely.
Yeah.
I think I have two.
Yeah.
And it makes sense that that's the one that's here
Yeah.
because it's exactly what the title, you know.
Yeah.
But typically I don't. And here's the interesting thing though, is that I will read people write about my work. I made a work that was like about, it was an anti-war painting about Veterans Day. It was basically just a still life, not a soul in it except for newspaper clippings. Like, like, oh God, I keep on wanting to call him Cassius. Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
Dodging the draft and things like that. And people talked about it. It's a painting of my books, and it's about it's an anti-war painting, and they talked about it as my butch painting. Like they were like my ones that are about like and then called it that it was about like butch gender and butch sexuality. And I thought like that's, first of all, so insane. I can't even. Also, a lot of assumptions.
Yeah.
Wait till you see me walk.
Yeah, and that happens with being a woman too, or whatever, you know, and it's just.
This inevitable,
Yeah.
It's a pie.
And it is, I mean, it is definitely part of this exhibition, but I also, and I think it's a shame that it's still part of the conversation on the one hand, but on the other hand, just looking at the last 50 years of what women have done in representing women, I think is interesting and shows so much inclusion, and like I said, so much richness and variety that I thought it was gonna be an interesting show with interesting conversations within. Okay, good, we're on yours, Christian.
Oh, it was gone. Okay.
No, it's coming back. So just to kind of say something about this work and what it is.
Well, there's a lot going on in it. I can say that.
It'll toggle back. They know.
So, well, I know one of the things that I think you said earlier was whether most of my work looks like this now. I mean, it's not the same painting, but I'm continuing, I think, as the woman that introduced us
Tiffany.
mentioned. I'm doing an ongoing series called Some Women, and then derivations. The first one was titled Some Women, and the next show is Some Women Portraits, and the next one I'm doing is Some Women, and it's going to include, and it is actually about control, and it's going to include animals and nature, and how as humans we try to enforce control over ourselves and our environment. So that's going to be in the next series. so I'm just continuing along, and I've started doing, some people call them hybrids, and yayoi. I name all my paintings after, there's a two-part title. It's all about, for me, the paintings are all about subject and object, and the dichotomy between the two, and how my idea at the beginning was, how can I get through this objectivity that I see and how women are represented so much in our culture, and maybe push through it to try to get to some subjectivity. And in what way, and how can I paint that? I felt the best way to do it was to paint multiple, not all just, let's see, there are, well, there's 2 bodies in that painting, and then 3 different heads. But some will have, like, you know, different like 5 different different, there, a number of different body parts and different eyeball, it's a mishmash. And they all create one new individual that has a new subjectivity. And in a way, I'm trying to so much increase, it's kind of a crazy idea, but in the sense, increase the amount of, I find images that I feel are objectified in the first place. So these women are basically objects, or are being looked at and dissected as objects. And so I'm taking a bunch of objects and putting them together, and then I figured maybe the more I put objects together, I can push through that and get to something on the other side and break through to a subjectivity.
And
If that makes
it does, and I know what you're doing, and some of the people here who were in class with me last semester also know, because we talked to you
Yeah.
virtually. But the inclusion of animals and talking about nature, and kind of like trying to take away the hierarchy of who's in charge, or like just talk about like why humans, male over female, or humans over animals, or whatever it is, why that is, and how can we equal it. Like, I feel like,
Or dominance apes.
yeah,
Yeah.
It's
totally.
really so stupid.
Yeah.
And we always have been, yeah.
And so the titles themselves, I named them, the first part is after a female painter that I admire or am inspired by. In this case, it's Yayoi Kusama. And then the second part is a technique that Whistler used, where he would pick out certain colors in his paintings, and to emphasize the nature of the paint as an object, as painting as an object, instead of to take it away from it being a representational painting, to help the viewer maybe look at it less so like that. Like the one about his mother has that kind of a title. So I thought it would be interesting to combine the two to have subject and object. So then the title refers back to all of that. So titles are also pretty important to me conceptually. And then with Yayoi, then I also, in my backgrounds, I've been combining art historical references, and mainly from male white artists, partly because I think they should be in the background for a while. And often, like Yayoi, the references in the background have to do with the woman that it is named after. And
It's not up there, but the polka dots.
The polka dots. So Yayoi Kusama is famous for her polka dots, as I'm sure many of you know. She's called, some people call her the polka dot princess or polka dot queen, as I like to say. And they are actually, though, Damien Hirst's dots.
Yeah.
And then behind Damien Hirst's dots is a Turner watercolor. So there are multiple layers in that painting, and it took a long time to make.
I think I didn't even ask you guys half the questions, but that's great, because I feel like we got through a lot, and we have like a little over 5 minutes left, and I think we should open it up to any questions from the audience. Yes, Shelby.
I was wondering if Christian and Celeste would share like one artist or painting from the show that they're like really excited to be featured alongside.
Good question. Did you hear the question?
Me or?
Both of you.
Oh.
The question is there someone in the exhibition who you're really excited to be featured alongside, or like that you're glad that other person is in the exhibition, another artist?
Well, for me, so many of them, already I've named like, let's see. I've named a painting after Faith Ringgold. I've named a painting after Jenny Savile. I've named a painting after Marlene Dumas.
Maria Lasnig.
And Maria Lasnig.
Yeah.
And probably also particularly Maria Lasnig, because I was very excited to see that her name was above mine. And I was introduced to her by a very, one of my closest friends that's an Austrian artist. And I hadn't heard of her before, and she came to stay with me, and she brought me this book, and I was like, oh my God, she's a fabulous painter. Yeah. And she's like, not very many people know of her here. And I was like, they should. And so she was very excited then to hear that we were in a show together. So maybe she's the main person.
Yeah. Celeste, you barely got to see the show, but.
Yeah, no, but I'm good at like,
Yeah.
I'm good at the speed one. I like slow, but I like fast too. I don't know all of them. I'm really, but the name that keeps on coming up to the top is Tracy Emin.
Yeah.
You know,
And that painting is incredible.
it's fucking,
Yeah.
sorry.
Tracy
Tracy
Emin.
Emin. Yeah. I mean, but I'm only saying that like in the spirit of choosing one. Like
Yeah.
I really am like.
That one, that painting though, and there's Celeste painting again. That Tracy Emin painting is so elemental to me because it's everything in one. It's like self-soothing, it's primitive, it's like all these things in one
Totally.
work. And it's done with kind of a lot of paint, but but
Yeah, but
kind
not
of
that
not,
much.
you
Not
know?
that much, which is sort of like what she does.
Yeah.
That's how she.
So it's like all of it in one painting, what
Yeah.
she does. you
Yeah.
know? Yes.
Yeah, I have a question for each of you. Celeste, like your imagery, normally you have like multiple figures in them. So I was wondering, when like in the 2017s, what was your formula of vulnerability? Because it did seem very personal. And then like even moving forward, when you're including like current events, you're including animals, like what is the formula that you have to mix the animals with the people? And then, Christina, my question for you is like, when you're composing these images with these people and these cultures, do you have like an internal group or like a code of ethics that's like to know more about the culture of the people, or do you just pick the people purely on visual aesthetics? The other,
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna go first. Go ahead.
I just want to say that like that question that you just asked is like when people come to my studio, that's the conversation. Like how to get vulnerable, like how to get past all of these blocks that are totally natural. You know, even the blocks of like painting about something and then like having it be like I'll be like painting about like somebody that killed an elephant, you know, and then I'm just sort of like mad at, like then I get angry and that's a block to the vulnerability, you know. So like how to get through to one's interior is really, it's amazing how many booby traps that we have to make sure that we can't go too deep in. And so, one of the things was that I really did hit an absolute wall with who I was, and around 2017, I was like, I'm losing certainty. I no longer claim certainty about anything. You know, it's like I went through all of these like radical transformations, including like, you know, but like, and then just spent all of my time like not being satisfied with what level I was on. To be like, oh, this is like a really, or I'm getting this feeling, and then be like, okay, that's great, but like you know there's something below that, right? You know, also I don't use drugs or anything like that, but I screw with my sleep because there's a place that there's that it's easy to get past those walls if you're tired, and I mean like really stay up. Like I'll stay up for 24 hours and then I get a second wind, and then I stay up for a bunch of hours out on that second wind, and then I get a third wind. And that is when things go really nuts. And it's also, like I can't do it forever, also I'm gonna die. But I mean, but I really, really, really take it, I am willing to die for the paintings, and I'm willing to, like what I get from those places, access to a living dream, to a relationship with the paintings where it is an autonomous being, because I'm not really in control. And then when I revisit it after I sit for 9 years, I come back in and it's very new and I'm unfamiliar with it, and much easier. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it's like the name of the game is that, and like the kitchen sink. Like just couldn't do it, you know? Yeah.
So that's how you get to your painting time,
Mm-hmm.
your unconscious. So that's
Yeah.
what my professors, the ones I mentioned at Berkeley, that's what they would call it, is painting time.
Painting time.
When
yeah.
it doesn't, I love that reference, because it's like when you stop thinking and are just doing.
Totally.
And it's just your hand. I don't know where it comes from,
Yeah.
and like where it's, you know, and
Totally.
yeah, mine is music.
Wow,
I need
that's
to,
another thing.
yeah.
The other thing is books on tape and music that I can sing along with.
Yeah.
Actually, not so that I'm not paying attention.
Exactly.
But it's also having faith that like it, like if I think my hand can do it, I don't have to sit there and be like, that's the weird shadow.
Yeah, otherwise I
Like-
get anxious, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then I don't get it.
Yeah. So great. Yeah.
Well, I didn't get to answer this, and part of my process is, or talk about it when I was talking about the painting, but a large part of my process is doing research and finding images on the internet. And I do searches, specifically using terms that have been used in art history to describe women. Like laying down or Olympia portrait, and I see what pops up. And for me, that's really important for me to use those current images, because then I'm looking at what people are currently looking at and what people are being currently influenced by. And that's what I want to work with, because that's what I want to make paintings about and hopefully make people think about.
Because they're working on us if we're not working on them, those images that you're finding on the internet.
What do you mean?
Like those are the images that like saturate, that make us, that's how we see ourselves reflected, like in the
Yeah.
internet, and it's behavior model. So if you're not looking at it and then we're not noticing it, those are the images that come and like program us.
Yeah, and everyone's
Yeah.
getting something different, and they're having, what's been happening with young women on Instagram and body acceptance and just all of that is very important to me to try to work with that.
I think we have time for one more question because it's a little bit after 7 and we'll stop after this. And also Christian needs a Band-Aid if anyone. Is there a final question from anyone? Any more questions?
I'm not bleeding yet. I'm not.
Oh, good.
I'm just a klutz, so.
Well, I guess we'll end there. Oh, yes.
So this is actually pretty Andrea. So when did you start thinking about this exhibition?
I started thinking about this exhibition in 2019, and I organized it during the pandemic, which is weird for any curator. I mean, because I would have wanted to go see Celeste. I did see Christian, and then I also got COVID on the flight home. I don't know.
Oh,
But
that was when you got COVID? Yes. Oh, no.
But I mean, there was just like not a lot of, there were like only a few windows when you could travel. And so I chose people whose work I had seen in person before, not necessarily the painting, but had seen their work, like knew their work firsthand, not just from the internet or from a periodical or art forum or something. So that made it different. But
Sorry, go ahead.
oh, go ahead.
You should say that some of the paintings, like you hadn't actually seen the final.
Yeah, a few of the
There-
paintings were made for the show. So I hadn't seen, and there's like some trust there, of course. But I had seen a whole show of your work in
Yeah.
LA, so some of the artists like Christian made a work for the show, and Claire Tabaret and a couple of others, but basically it was a strange time on the one hand because I couldn't go have one of my favorite parts of working with living artists, which is a collaboration and like an exchange. I didn't get to do that. But on the other hand, I guess the silver lining was there was a lot of time to just go down rabbit holes and go internal and like think about what the show was going to be. So, yeah. So I so appreciate all of you being here, and thank you so much to you both, because this would have just been like me looking at slides talking about them otherwise, and it's so much more interesting to hear from you guys. Thank you so much, and thank you all for being here.